Now, yesterday, Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron did some deals. The headline deal was one where a bunch of migrants would continue to cross the channel in small boats. They would be sent back to France. And in return, Britain would take exactly the same number of people from France, except these would be people that France is particularly keen to get rid of. I suspect that is what's going to go on. So, this can be ignored because it will do nothing to reduce the number of people coming into the UK. And in any case, we should always keep in mind that the main source of migration in the UK by far is regular migration. The small boats remain a small problem. It's a diversion. And so my question is, what was it that Starmer was diverting from? Well, first of all, was his nuclear deal. And France and the UK will, they say, deepen their nuclear cooperation and coordination. A Franco-British nuclear steering group is going to be established, and that's going to provide political direction for this work. So this is absolutely a political agenda. It's not something which is being driven by any other need. It'll be led by the presidency of the French Republic and the Cabinet Office in the UK. It's going to coordinate across nuclear policy, capabilities and operations. And they say, quotes, "Our nuclear weapons exist to deter the most extreme threats to the security of our nations and our vital interests. Our nuclear forces are independent but can be coordinated and contribute significantly to the overall security of the alliance." They don't specify in their press release which alliance they're speaking about. But anyway, in the final communique, then they reaffirmed their determination to, quote, "ensure Russia does not prevail in its illegal war of aggression," as well as their commitment to lasting support to Ukraine. They convened the Coalition of the Willing over the last couple of days with more than 30 nations participating, they say, all supposedly committed to Ukraine's long-term security. And in the course of that meeting, Secretary of State for War John Healey repeated Starmer's position that they're, quote, "ready to put troops into Ukraine to help reinforce a ceasefire." Of course, no mention of how that ceasefire is going to be arrived at so far. They agreed to launch a counter-shadow fleet partnership to, quote, "crack down on dangerous Russian-backed vessels in the Channel, reduce Russian oil revenues via these vessels, and safeguard our maritime security." We are committed, they said, to defending democracy and stability in the wider European neighbourhood, and have agreed to work together on new support to strengthen resilience in the Western Balkans and Moldova. We'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. They went on to let us know that Ukraine is not enough. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, they said, and so they'll work with Germany to make sure that this doesn't happen. And don't forget China, because China also has to be dealt with. I think North Korea must be breathing a sigh of relief at this point. They aren't even thought, North Korea isn't even thought about anymore. So Starmer and Macron also announced Lancaster House 2.0. That is the new iteration of the Lancaster House treaties, which were signed by David Cameron in 2010, which brought Britain into a 50-year defence pact with France. And they announced the Combined Joint Force, otherwise known as Combined Joint Expeditionary Force 2.0, and which will, they say, build a shared capability of sufficient scale for warfighting and ready to operate in all domains, including space and cyber, in the defence of Europe. And they said, and I quote, "we will maximise our impact against the highest threat terrorist groups, including deepening our counter-terrorism cooperation in Syria." And if you haven't just fallen off your chair, well, I would seriously consider it, because that's just such an incredible thing for them to say. Now, here is a quote from the communique. "As we've explicitly stated since 1995, we do not see situations arising in which the vital interests of either France or the United Kingdom could be threatened without the vital interests of the other also being threatened. France and the United Kingdom agree there is no extreme threat to Europe which would not prompt a response by our two nations." Now, taking all of this into account, Patrick, I do wonder, what does that remind you of?
Well, this is exactly where we were prior to World War I. So this is power politics writ large after the concert of Europe, and all of these entangling alliances and loyalties and so forth led to a situation where all it took was an assassination in the West Balkans. And all of a sudden you have all the various axes and blocks pitted against each other. And there's the most important part: absolutely dedicated to a military path to resolve disputes, no diplomatic track at all. The only way you can resolve these is through military means. Isn't that what we're seeing right now? Do you see anybody talking about political resolution or diplomacy to solve the Ukraine crisis? Because I don't.
No, there is absolutely no effort at diplomacy whatsoever. In fact, as we have pointed out several times over the last few weeks, the rhetoric from both Britain and the United States is that basically Putin is effectively refusing to engage. It's similar to the sort of strategy of Israel of putting a deal on the table that the other side absolutely cannot accept, and then claim that the other side has refused to engage with it.
It's a pantomime of negotiations. It's getting old as well. Look, on the conventional front, what have Britain and the French done in response to the gravest threat Europe has ever faced since World War II that they tell us is the war in Ukraine? What have they done? They haven't engaged at all. All they've done is pump weapons in to a proxy, to Ukraine, and then do special forces to try to blow things up and sabotage and so forth. It's been an utter disaster and a failure. So I guess they're going to do more of that, because I don't see much on the conventional front from the British or the French side. And France is a spent force as far as the conventional military go. But on the nuclear side, Mike, that's a problem. That's a problem, because you have Britain does not have an independent nuclear deterrent. It is controlled by the United States on every single conceivable level, including the command level.
Right.
Now, France maybe less so, but even France is tethered to the United States in different ways. But having an independent, two what I would say, two belligerent actors in Europe, acting with their own agenda. And we know Britain has their own geopolitical agenda. And without the United States in Europe, could very easily kick off a crisis or a war that would ultimately drag the United States into a European or a precursor to a World War III situation or a European conflict. But that already happened twice in the last century.
Right.
So I think we shouldn't really be going there. But this is where this is the conversation that we'd like to have, but it's not the conversation they're having. So it's on the French front, though, there's something to be even more worried about. We'll bring this up on screen here. And by the way, this is from the National Security Archives at George Washington University in the United States. And we've carefully gone through a lot of these various files to pick out the highlights. The untold story of Israel's nuclear deception. And let's look at that. Well, how did Israel get nuclear weapons? How did they get nuclear power? Well, they got it with the help of the French, and they stole the other bits from the United States. Israel had illegally obtained nuclear capabilities since 1967, largely due to substantial support from France, which helped it to become the sixth nuclear power worldwide, ensuring France a seat on the UN Security Council, the big club, right? But here's the problem with this. This is the detail that nobody wants to talk about. In 1965, U.S. visitors were told that spent fuel would probably be returned to France from Israel for chemical processing, although he, quote, gave the impression that no detailed consideration had yet been given to this problem. We now know this was misleading. Israelis never returned the spent fuel to France. Instead, they reprocessed their own, and it was irradiated reactor core every 6 months. So basically what happened here, Mike, is that Israel stole from NUMEC facility
Right.
the weapons grade material, the plans, the know-how, and France built the Dimone is a copy of the French nuclear reactor. Okay, so they got their civilian nuclear reactor program built by France. In return, Israel gave the weapons grade material and know-how to France. So both of them built their nuclear programs together, and then France did the testing for the Israeli nukes. How could Israel do testing when it's the size of Wales? They sent it out to Bikini Atoll in the South Pacific and to South Algeria or around Mali. That's where, in their colonies in Saharan Africa, that's where the French tested their nukes, and they tested Israel's at the same time. This is how it happened. So France is partner to an illegal, not under supervision of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Israel has between 90 and 300 nuclear warheads, undeclared, nobody knows, because they won't allow inspectors in. A totally illegal nuclear weapons program sponsored and facilitated by France, right? So this is a kind of a problem if The British and the French are working with their own so-called independent nuclear deterrence. You really have to add Israel
Yes.
to that tripartite nefarious arrangement.